Hey y'all, how you doing? I'm sitting up here trying to go to sleep. And I got a major download that I gotta talk about. So I'm gonna talk about it. I've been trying to sit up and figure this whole thing out. Why the perception of obeying and all that kind of stuff. And, the Bible and stuff. And I was shown the big picture. And it's huge. So buckle up. Those you don't know me, I'm Divine Sally. Supposed to be going to sleep. Welcome in. Good evening. So, I was thinking about something. I was trying to figure out why a people that are supposed to follow L would instead pick up Babylonian law. And I had to kind of look it up because the Jews were exiled to Babylonia. But see, here's the thing. The 12 tribes were given specific rules, specific duties. Land was divvied up for them, right? And I was thinking to myself, I said, okay, somewhere along the way they changed. That's why Jesus had to come. Jesus told Pilate he came for one purpose, and that was to bear witness to the truth. And I thought about that. And I said, of course, because this is Satan's realm, and God couldn't take Satan's word for who needed to be saved and who didn't. So God had to send his own emissary to see, right? And then I was sitting up here and I was like, Father, why were they following Babylonian law when they're supposed to be following the law of El? Now that rabbit hole goes deep, very deep. You see, I remember Abraham going to Canaan and adopting El, but leaving where he was from, which had multiple gods, which had the Anunnaki, Sumeria, and Babylon, and Mesopotamia and stuff. And then, in Egypt, they're talking about the Anunnaki. That's where they ruled. Well, they ruled the Hebrews, Jews, right? Israelites, original, and Canaanites, original Jews. And I'm sitting up here and I was thinking, because I was also trying to figure out how the Pharisees become Greek and Roman Jews, right? The Jews spread out all over. And something said, go back to the tribes. So I went back, think about the tribes. And particularly the Levites. And I remember the Levites were given no land. They were the priests. They were the poor ones. But whenever you look at any movie dealing with Jesus, you see them nicely dressed. You see them with money. When my father specifically said they were to have none, God told them they were to have no land. They were the only tribe to have no land and have nothing. They were to serve. They were the priests. And I said, that's interesting, because they went from having nothing, no land, to be the most affluent. But by that time, they mixed their law with Babylonian law. That's why you have a Babylonian Bible that they follow. And I said, well, why would they do that if God gave them their laws? He says, But see, the Anunnaki always wanted to enslave the human race. And you can look at it as, kind of a devilish thing. Either you're going to follow El, or you're going to follow Enki, Enlil, and the rest of them who got rid of Nana, Mother Goddess. And it's kind of like, better to serve Better to lead in hell than serve in heaven. Better to serve those gods where they receive and enslave people for them, keep them enslaved. And the reason why I was able to surmise that, because you got to look at who runs the money now, and the religions now, and the Jewish religion and how it's split, and different sects and stuff like that, and the control factor of now. And how can they're controlling things and controlling the people. How you have aliens, that's what the Anunnaki were. Their agenda has always been to enslave humanity, to serve them. And there have always been those of us chosen to fight for humanity, telling them no. But it's harder now because we got all these watchers and fallen and shit here fighting against us too. So I was sitting up here and I was like, And I looked at the Bible, I zoomed out. I said, this is their doctrine, this Bible. Not Christian doctrine. This is their doctrine. This is their story. When Jesus was talking about, he was the laws of Abraham. He is. Because they weren't all following the laws of Abraham. They mixed in Babylonian law, which is not the law of El. And I'm like, wow. And the Pharisees were Greeks and Romans, Jews. And I said, wow. I said, So then it made me think, how much, first of all, when you get into gods, El, yes, then you have the sons, right? But then when you get into Samaria, Mesopotamia, Babylon, you had multiple gods, right? And then because you use the word gods, but they use God, but Elohim means gods. So, of course, more than one, you start confusing which God is what. If you look at the Old Testament, there's 5 different gods they're talking about. Each of them gods that they're talking about has a different personality. But people are assuming they're talking about El. Only when dealing with Abraham, when he gets to that land, are we talking about El, not before. It's been confused. Just like when you say Amen, that goes to Amen Ra. That who's believed is Biyinki or whatever it is. The point is, that's not going to El. But yet, the Catholic Church uses it to pray to El, but that's not for El. It's for Ra. My point is, the Bible is a hodgepodge, but it's not just a hodgepodge of people's different things, which we know that, right? But it was seriously vague to confuse certain things. My biggest question was, if you're a Jew and you follow El, why? Even if you were exiled to Babylon, why would you pick up Babylonian law that was nothing of what Abraham taught, which is the father of that nation? Why would you? Then I fast forward to the Hebrews. And I said, Father, why is loving each other so important? That's what Jesus taught her. Why? And I thought about the Hebrews and I said, well, they fought amongst each other when they had to travel in the desert. That's why they had traveled for so long. They didn't have faith. They didn't have love. And they were disobeying all over the place, right? Worshiping idols is a Babylonian Sumerian thing, not an El thing. So that shows you the influence there in that story, right? So then it said, go back further, go to the tribes. Look how the brothers treated Joseph to know how the tribes are going to turn out. They were selfish amongst themselves. My God, I mean, the Benjamites and how they act. And I'm like, no wonder it got off kilter. Because when the land was divvied out, they weren't exactly happy. The Levites weren't, but they obeyed. See, that's where the obeying is talking about. This is where the obey comes in. The obey comes in because they went to Babylonian law, not El. And El was telling them to obey El, not Enki, Enlil, and the rest of them. That's where the obey was. And why? It was God and Jesus trying to call back their people in line with their laws, not outside laws that they adopted to be their laws. That's why Jesus had to go outside of the Jews and teach. Because if the Jews wouldn't listen, maybe others would, to help everyone gather under El. I said, oh, I understand. Love was to teach the 12 tribes to find their way back to their Father and not let others, other aliens, deities, whatever, come in the way of their bond, because the Jewish bond, their family, they're related. But what did they do? The rich, right? And then you got the Hebrews. And the Hebrews did nothing but complain, 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 complain. And that's why they were punished so much. And since we're seen as the lowest of the low, and what race is considered the lowest of the low? Since we're seen as the lowest of the low, but they are now Christians that follow Jesus, who's son of El. And that is why the Hebrew is shit on. Because it's the lowest of the low that stayed with El. While the higher, the higher adopted Babylonian, Sumerian, Mesopotamian law, integrated into theirs, but mainly theirs. And you know, because there's a Babylonian Bible they follow. Some of them, not all. Because there's different sects. Okay, let me say that there's different sects. Not all of them follow a Babylonian Bible. And if you have ever read one and you belong to El, your head would spin. The shit they do. But that's what the aliens do. See, for me, if I was my father, I'd say I don't want to have them. They're not fit to even touch or follow my word. And they're not. This whole thing, Jesus coming down, and the Comforter coming, was and still is to get the Jews to renounce that law, apologize for what they did to Jesus, recognize Jesus as the Son coming down to bear witness. He had a witness before, it was Moses. Same line as line of Judah, same line as Moses is Jesus. Bear witness. That was the witness line. The Judas line was the witness line. Bear witness to report back. They're to apologize and ask for forgiveness for leaving what the original 12 tribes were set up to do. And say, listen, if others can follow, why can't you return back home? And that's what this is about. The Jews returning back home and being whole. But now everyone being whole. I said that the Old Testament was a historical account. I said the whole book is a historical account with a lot of places missing, so you couldn't read between the lines. This is what I have surmised so far, and I'm going to go and study to see. But that's pretty much was the gist of it. And that was my question. Why would the tribes, even if they had to migrate to Babylon, why would you? Hence, not being able to understand and all of that. Why would you? Knowing how El is, why would you adopt a text and a law and a practice that's not yours? Unless it was. The Hebrew poor. Back then, there was colorism. Moses' sister made fun of Moses' wife, and God had to get on her. Back then, there was colorism among the Hebrews. They're not squeaky clean. But they knew El, and they followed El. What the fuck happened to the Roman and Greek Jews? What the fuck happened to the Pharisees, Sadducees, and clerics? To make them follow what was not right. And they were our example. That's the thing. That's what hurts God the most. They were our example for everyone else. Why would you deviate? That obeying, that's for you. That's for the Jews. That's for the Hebrews. That's for that line, those tribes. That's for them. The following the laws the way this, and they were laid out, right? That's for them. Why would they disobey? Why would they disobey? As I find out more information, I'll bring it to you. But that's what kept me up this night. They are not to be hated. They just lost their way. And judgment is upon us because it's time. But their Father is still waiting for them to come back home and be humble enough to apologize and admit that Jesus was their Savior. Because He is, my Father is. And that they were not to pick up any other doctrine and to ask for forgiveness. That's what my Father is waiting for. His people to acknowledge Him and apologize. And for everyone else, you are not to persecute them. Only El is to do that. No one said that you are to go and shit on His people. But the people became everyone because the Jews disobeyed. That is why it became everyone. For that reason. Because they wouldn't listen. We are to love and show them how to love. Show everyone how to love, not judge them. No, we don't have that right. We were not given that right. We are not to do that. We are not to harm them. We're not to kill them. Because their judgment is going to be more than everyone else's. I guarantee you that. Because my father's going to be like, if so-and-so could follow who's not even a Jew, why couldn't you? You're part of the tribes. The tribes don't get leeway like everyone else. They don't. We are to love them into understanding and show them and teach them and walk with them to show them. And I know the egos are big. Oh, I know the egos are big and you don't tell them. And I know. But you use love anyway, as my father said. We are to show them. Hebrews, you are to show them. Because you know more than everybody else. You know. Where they lost their way, they know. Love everyone. Teaches everyone. And I wanted to make this point too. You love yourself to find God, to love everyone else. The end all be all is not just loving you. The end all be all is to love everyone. You love yourself to love others. And that is how my Father will know you are of him, because you are loving everyone or doing your best to do so. That's how he will recognize you, is your heart chakra and your authenticity to do so. You dig? As my father said, your own will hate you. And as they hated him, they will hate and persecute you. How do you stand to bring love into this world and change it? Where do you stand? What are you willing to sacrifice? That's what it's about. Bringing everyone back, especially his tribes. That's what it's about. All right, my loves, I love you. Have a wonderful evening. Namaste.